hearing your budget. This is hearing number 4. I'm going forward with the chair of the Board of Finance. Just a couple of things. Public is encouraged to send their comments before the meeting following email fairfield.ct.org/contact for Board of Finance. If you call or listen or join meeting through Zoom, you will not be heard by board members, and there will be no live public comment until called for. Shared during the meeting. Live public comment pertinent to agenda item 3 is welcome and will be called for by the chair before the discussion of that item is heard. Comments will be limited to no more than 3 minutes per individual. So let's stand. Pledge of Allegiance. That's on page 64. And I believe we're going to get a presentation from Megan Castellano, principal consulting acting via Zoom. Is that correct? Here.
Hi. Hi, I'm here.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? Doesn't
Okay,
seem I can do my video, so. Oh, there I am. Okay, perfect. Good
Okay.
evening.
I believe we have a backup that was handed out. It's also been posted on the town website. It's a Town of Fairfield, Connecticut actuarial analysis as of June 30th, 2025. That's to follow along that where we find this. So why don't you take us through the presentation, and then we'll probably have some questions for you. By the way, and correct me if I'm right, along, Tom, this is on page 64, but we have received updated numbers. I think the board members moved this a few minutes ago, or you want to pass it out now?
Yep.
Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so the budget is on page 65 for the general fund, and WPCA and FCRD are in the self-supporting funds. The schedule that Ben is handing out really ties to the numbers that are in the budget book. And after the budget book was prepared, Milliman updated their numbers, so the schedule that he has reconciles from the budget book to the presentation that you're going to receive.
Okay. You're on. Go ahead.
Okay, so I believe the first item in the backup packet was the police and fire retirement plan. So that would be called the Fairfield Police and Firemen's Retirement System, the highlights of the July 1st, 2025 valuation. Does everyone have that in front of them?
Yes.
Okay. So we can move on to page 1 of that presentation. And here we have the membership in the plan as of the valuation date and over the last 5 years. You'll notice in the top left-hand corner of this page, we have the membership by status. The darker blue at the bottom of the bars represents your active membership. Those are members who are still employed by the town. This is an open plan, so this count generally stays level from year to year. It went from 209 people last year to 210 people this year. The next category are the members in pay status. That's the lighter blue section. These are people who have terminated employment from the town and are now collecting a monthly pension benefit from the plan. That number increased slightly to 241 from 238 last year. And the last group is just a few individuals in that group are your terminated members. And these are people who have stopped working for the town but have not yet begun to collect their benefit. Okay, and there's 3 of those at this point in time. Moving down to the bottom left-hand portion of this page, we look at the active membership distributed across different age and service categories. The darker the box, the higher the concentration in that particular bucket. And you can see that for this plan, the active membership is fairly well dispersed, ranging from younger people with lower service to older individuals with longer service. And that's expected for a plan such as this, that it's open to new hires. There'll be regular attrition and being replaced with younger people. Moving on to page 2, we look at the assets in the plan over the last 5 years. Fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025 was another strong year in the market for the plan. So it's been 3 years in a row of outperforming the plan's assumed rate of return. For fiscal year ending 25, the return was just over 11.5%. We expected investment income of about $15.2 million during the year. The actual investment income during that period was $25.5 million. So that results in a market gain of just over $10 million. Now, for purposes of calculating the plan's the town's contribution to the plan on an annual basis, we smooth market gains and losses over a 5-year period to calculate what is known as the actuarial value of assets. In the bottom portion of this page, you can see the market value and the actual value of assets graphed over the last 5 years. The market value are the darker bars, and the actual value of assets is represented by the lighter bars. You'll notice that as of July 1st, 2025, the actuarial value of assets is about $6.3 million lower than the market value of assets. And what that means is there's $6.3 million of deferred gains that have not been recognized in the actual value of assets as of this point in time, because we recognize those gains and losses over a 5-year period. What that means is that absent any future offsetting market losses, we expect this to help to improve the plan's funded status over time, over the next several years, and put downward pressure on the town's contribution over the next several years. Moving on to page 3, this is an analysis that we prepare every year for the town, taking a look at the plan's target asset allocation and the expected rate of return that is expected based on how the plan's assets are invested using our Milliman's capital market assumptions. We look at that and compare that to what the assumption we're using to value the liability. Now, on the top of this page, you can see the asset allocation graphed in various different bubbles. Each bubble represents a different asset class in which the plan is invested. The larger the bubble, the higher the allocation to that particular asset class. Along the left-hand side of the graph are the expected annual returns for any of the given asset classes, and along the bottom portion of the graph is the volatility or riskiness associated with any particular asset class. So asset classes in the top right-hand quadrant of this graph are high return, but also higher risk. Those in the bottom left-hand quadrant represent asset classes that have lower return but lower risk. The black dot kind of in the middle of this graph represents your portfolio as a whole and the expected return and riskiness associated with that, with your portfolio. Moving to the bottom portion of this page, we can look at the returns in any given year, and there's can be a lot of volatility from one year to the next. But as time goes on and we look at a longer term horizon, the expectation of the portfolio converges on the 50th percentile, what we call the median. And what that means is that 50% of the time we can expect the plan's assets to outperform that 50th percentile and 50% of the time to fall short. Looking at the 30-year time horizon, which is the long-term nature of this obligation, we expect the plan to return about 6.8% per year over time. We're currently using a 6.9% assumption to value the liability. So we're right in the ballpark where we need to be, and there's no recommendations this year to change that assumption for purposes of calculating the liability. Moving on to page 4, we are looking at the funded status of the plan, both as of the valuation date and historically. As of July 1st, 2025, before any changes to any of the assumptions, we expected the accrued liability to be about $296.8 million. It was actually $298.4 million, so almost $2 million higher than we expected it to be. And this was primarily due to higher salary increases than we were expecting from our assumptions last year. So that drove the liability up higher. We did update some assumptions during the year. If you recall, last year we came to the town and recommended that the town phase in assumptions from an experience study over a 2-year period. We're in the second year of that phase in. So updating the assumptions and updating the mortality brought the liability down slightly and landed us at $297.8 million as of July 1st, 2025. Moving down to the bottom left-hand portion of this page, the unfunded accrued liability is up slightly from last year, from 61.7 million to 62.3 million. We expected the unfunded accrued liability to be 63.1 million. So the plan is in a better position than we expected to be a year ago. Likewise, moving over to the funded ratio on the bottom right-hand part of this page, the funded ratio has improved slightly from 78.4% to 79.1%, about 40 basis points higher than we expected it to be. Moving on to page 5, this is where we show the actuarially determined contribution that the town is recommended to make to the plan to help fulfill the future obligations in the future. We've graphed these contributions over the last 5 years. The top portion of this page represents illustrates the 3 components that go into the contribution. The first component being the normal cost, and that is represented by the darker green portion on the bottom part of the graph. The normal cost represents the present value of benefits expected to be earned by your active membership over the course of the next year. That number usually is fairly constant because this is an open plan, an ongoing plan. We expect that number to steadily grow over time. The past service component, which is the lighter green portion, is the amortization of the unfunded accrued liability. So that's $63 million of unfunded accrued liability that we represent on the previous page is being paid down over a period of time. Currently, as of the current valuation date, the amortization period is 16 years. So what that means is that over the course of the next 16 years, we expect the plan to be fully funded, and that past service cost component will go away. But as of right now, that component is $5.4 million for the year. The third component is just a small interest component to take into account the fact that we perform all these calculations as of July 1st, 2025, but the town doesn't actually make the contribution to until some point in the future. So we make an adjustment for that timing difference. All in all, the contribution has increased from just under $9 million last year to $9.7 million this year. We expected the contribution to be $9.7 million this year, so the growth is pretty much in line with what we expected. So in short, the losses on the liability side were offset by gains on the asset side, and so that net impact kind of offset each other and led us to a result that is pretty much where we expected the number to be this year. Moving on to page 6, this is everything I've already presented, but just with lots of numbers. For those who are interested, I'm not going to go through these in detail today, but I'll just point out that for the 2025 valuation, there are 3 columns of results. The first column represents just updating the asset and census information and not updating the assumptions, so not phasing in the rest of the experience study or not changing the mortality assumption. The second column represents phasing in the rest of the experience study assumption changes. And then the last column represents changing the mortality assumption. So that's where we end up with a $9.7 million contribution for fiscal year ending 2027. And lastly, we put together a small projection every year. This is a deterministic projection, so it assumes that all of our assumptions come true in the future. These numbers are not intended to be set in stone, but to just give the town an idea of where the numbers are expected to trend towards over the next 10 years or so. And you can see we do expect the contribution to go up slightly next year, and then kind of level off thereafter. And the funded ratio will continue to incrementally improve over the next 10 years. Any questions? And that's all I have on the police and fire. Is there any questions on this plan before I move on to the next plan?
Mr. Walsh, go ahead.
With what you were just talking about at the top of page 7, why do you expect it to go up next year?
So if I step back to page 2, where we look at the asset returns, remember that for purposes of calculating the contribution, asset gains and losses are smoothed in over a 5-year period. If you look at the graph on the top left-hand corner of that page, you'll see the negative 9% return for fiscal year 22. That still has one more year of recognition. So that last year will be fully recognized in the actuarial value of assets next year. So that piece is putting upward pressure on the contribution. And it's being partially offset by the gains in the 3 subsequent years, but not enough to not put some upward pressure on the contribution. But that's why.
It'll be one more year of that, and then we will have 3 great years to start taking advantage of, and hopefully
Correct.
bad years. So then we should start seeing it come down, correct?
Yeah, unless there's future offsetting losses that come into play that we don't know about yet.
Okay. And then is that the reason on page 5, when you spoke about the bottom and the black graphs, why you expected this to happen?
Yeah, exactly. There was still that 2 years left of that, so there was upward pressure, and we naturally expect the contribution to go up for any plan that's underfunded, because you still have to close that gap of the unfunded liability. And the mechanics behind that calculation is like I said, it's currently at a 16-year period, but it has a 2% growth rate built into it. So even if everything of all of our assumptions come true, we expect that past service cost component, that lighter green section, to grow by 2% every year at the very least.
Okay. And then on page 6, you went over each of the columns, and the last column, which is just the numbers we're using, correct?
Correct.
Is you put updated, published 2016 mortality rate. Is that a new change for this year, or is that?
Yes, that is a new change for this year. The Society of Actuaries issues an update to the public plan mortality tables every 5 or 6 years. So this year was the most recent table released. So we are recommending moving to that table because it is the most up-to-date information available. It did bring down the liability ever so slightly, but it had a fairly nominal impact on the cost, as you can see.
Okay. So the favorability was that the mortality rate is increasing slightly?
It means that people are not living quite as long as the original study expected. So mortality, life expectancy is a little bit shorter than originally expected from the last study.
All right. Is there drivers for that? What's causing that, or you just get a number?
That's just based on their study and the data. They collect hundreds of thousands of data points for public plans, and this particular table is specific to public safety as well. So it's just showing that you expect slight tweaks when you look at the data over the course of another set of years, but there's nothing material and nothing that seemed stood out to me that as anything that to be concerned about.
And that was a vote that the JRIB took to
Yes.
to go to that new mortality chart?
Yes.
There's no phase in, it's just automatically just dropped in. Everything else seems phased in. Why was this just dropped in?
Yeah. So generally speaking, we wouldn't phase in assumptions unless it's a material change. And this is a minor change. It changed the liability by less than 1%. So my recommendation was to just fully recognize it all at once this year.
Okay. Can I ask you another question? In your assumptions, when you're doing your actuarial values, they're based on how long people have left of service. Is that how you're calculating that?
Yeah, so we make several assumptions about future expectations. One is how long people will continue to work for the town, how much their salary will increase, and at what age they will retire, and so all that kind of is built into the calculation. And to the extent actual experience deviates from that, it introduces gains and losses to the liability side of things.
Okay. And I'm not sure whether it's you with that answer, there's somebody else. if we were having a problem with an employee and we entered into a settlement for them to separate with us, could the JRIB vote to increase their pension or to increase the, more than that they were actually due? By number of years or by something else? Do they have that ability?
I don't know if, as far as the governance is concerned, is who has that call, whether it's the town or the JRIB, that you'd have to, I would defer to legal counsel on that.
Okay. Mr. Pierce, can you answer the question?
Not tonight, I can't.
Okay, can you get us an answer? And if so, I'd like to know every person that's received any, if that's happened, every person that's happened or the number, if you can't give them their specific names because it's a legal settlement, how much that has increased because of those reasons, because of settlements over the last 5 years on a per year basis. Number of employees plus what that has been.
I think at the very least, there would have to be some type of contribution made. So
I don't know.
I think some pension plans don't allow that, but we'll get an answer. So
I would think that the benefits have to be paid out per the plan documents, and that seems strange to me to pay.
we can get an answer though. Anything else, Jim?
That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Myers, go ahead.
Yes, hi. I think you said that the pension would be fully funded in 16 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
And who decides at what point the goal of funding it completely? Is that a JRIB decision? Is that an administration?
Yes, so that's part of the funding policy that is decided on by the JRIB.
Okay. And then when I look at the contribution, about 3 years ago it was about 7 million, and now it's at 10. And we're saying, at least on this graph on page 7, that for the next 10 years, it's going to be around 10 million. That the fact that it's going to be able to be leveraged at 10 million for 10 years, which is a great thing, I guess. Is that because of the decision to phase the fully funding over 16 years? Like we're giving ourselves the flexibility of pegging that number at 10 million?
Yeah, so part of it has to do with the deferral of those investment gains, right? That, remember, we have 3 good years of investments that we have deferred. And if you look at page 7 at the projection, you'll see it goes up a bit, but then it goes down for 3 years after that, right? And then those next 3 years where it drops from 10.2 down to just under 9.7 million, that's the recognition of those deferred gains. By fiscal year 31, those have all been recognized, and then you see it start to incrementally increase again, because we've gotten all those gains in the back in the past, and at this point in our projection, because our projection assumes no gains or losses in the future, starting at fiscal year 31, from there forward, the actuarial value of assets and the market value of assets actually are equal to each other. And that way you see that slight increase. And that increase is a combination of the normal cost slightly increasing every year, and that past service cost increasing slightly every year.
Okay,
So
then-
it's just a function of a couple different offsetting factors, which makes it happen to be at just over $10 million. Around $10 million for the course of the 10-year period. Last year, the projection looked a little bit different than that because we didn't have another year of gains built in to the projection. So it does vary from year to year depending on what happens in the market.
Thank you. And finally, on this sheet where we have the change in the original budget million value versus the updated million value, it went down, I believe, by 108,000. Can you just quickly highlight what was the main reason for that change?
So the main reason was that it turned out, it was uncovered during the audit that we were provided with the incorrect asset information to calculate the results. So to the extent the asset value was corrected, that flows through to the unfunded accrued liability and the past service costs and so on and so forth, and therefore to the contribution. So for most of the plans, the asset value reported to us was understated originally. And when we got the updated information from the town's auditors, we were able to reflect that in the calculation, and it brought the contribution down for most of the plans, with the exception, I think, of the town OPEB plan.
Any other questions? Mr. Walsh, got a follow-up?
Yep. How would it, how was it understated? It was this year, like the audit that just happened? They got
Yes,
on-
for fiscal year 25.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, we haven't had an audit committee meeting in a while, so I guess we'll find out from Joe Centofanti how that happened. Where do you normally get these numbers from?
From the
Finance?
town, from the finance department.
Okay,
I think we just got the final audit in.
yeah, I've just never
I mean,
heard
like,
of this,
within the last 10
the
days.
numbers being off.
We're gonna get together and go over that with Joe in the next few.
Those changes were reflected in the draft that you received.
In the draft that we received.
Yes.
Okay. And I just want to know, Ms. Castellano, has there been any, other than the mortality change that you talked about earlier when I asked you the question? Is any assumption in calculating any of these figures or any actuarial assumption calculation change from last year to this year? That's happened in the past with another company before your company.
Yeah, so if you look back on page 6, we're phasing in the remaining portion of the experience study changes from last year. So that wasn't really, it's not a new change. It's just fully recognizing the other half of it. So you'll see from on page 6 in the 2025 columns, the middle column there represents that. So you see that made the contribution go from just 9.2 million to 9.8 million. And so that is phasing in a decision that was made last year. It's just fully recognizing that. So now that that's complete, the assumptions are up to date from my perspective. And we'll revisit an experience study again in a few years from now, as is best practice, and see if there's any recommendations at that point in time. But absent that, I don't anticipate any other changes to the assumptions going forward for the next several years.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this one? Seeing none, can you take us through the point for the town of Fairfield employee retirement picture?
Yep, so
Backup is online too for people following. Go ahead.
So next up is, the Town of Fairfield's Employees Retirement System. A very similar story with this plan as with the police and fire plan. If we start with page 1, the one difference with this plan is closed to new entrants, meaning that new employees do not go into the benefit plan. They are going into a defined contribution plan. So if we look on page 1 in the top left-hand corner and look at the membership counts, the darker blue section, which represents your active employees, you can see that number is steadily declining from one year to the next, and we expect that to continue to happen until it's at some point in the future where there are no more active members left in this plan. The members in pay status, the lighter blue section, will continue to grow as the active members retire. And then lastly, your terminated members. These are people who have terminated employment but not have yet begun to collect a benefit. There are just about 100 of those as of the last valuation date, and they will collect a benefit at some point in the future. Looking to the bottom left-hand portion of this page, where we graph the active membership by age and service. It's a much different picture than the police and fire plan. You can see that the counts are very heavily concentrated towards older members with longer service, and that is expected with a closed group. The average age of active members is just under 59, with over 20 years, almost 21 years of service. So a majority of the active membership is eligible to retire either early or normal, with an early or normal retirement, and you'll continue to see this group get older and have a shorter duration on the liability as a result. What that means is that things such as the interest rate assumption have a much lesser impact on the liability because the duration of the liability is much shorter. Moving on to page 2. This page represents the assets, similar to the police and fire. The story here is very, very similar because both plans are invested together and then allocated for purposes of calculating the contribution. But again, we expected investment income of just over $16 million for the year. Actual investment income was just over $27.5 million. So there's an $11.5 million gain to the assets during fiscal year ending 2025. Again, 3 strong years of returns following that difficult year in 2022. Similar to the other plan, the loss from 2022 has 1 more year left before it's fully recognized in the actuarial value of assets. For this plan, the actuarial value of assets is about $7.1 million less than the market value as of the valuation date. So that's 7.1 million of net deferred gains that are still expected to be recognized over the next several years. And what that will mean is it will gradually put some downward pressure on the town's contribution and help to improve the funded status absent any offsetting market losses in the future. On page 3, this page is identical to the police and fire plan. I'm not going to go over it again. It is identical because the plans are both invested exactly the same. So moving on to page 4, you'll see that the accrued liability increased from $287 million last year to about $293 million this year, top left-hand corner. We had expected, before any changes to the assumptions, the plan to grow to about $294 million before the mortality change assumption, I should say. So it was slightly higher. Sorry, we expected to grow $294 million before the mortality change. It was actually $296 million. So again, about a $2 million liability loss. This was primarily, again, due to higher salary increases than expected, as well as fewer deaths than expected. So to the extent, so that caused the liability to be slightly higher than expected. That was slightly offset by a gain due to fewer retirements than expected. Again, we recommended a change to the mortality assumption to use the most up-to-date mortality assumption available, and that brought down the liability by about 2.9 million, and that's how we get to the $293.1 million as of July 1st, 2025. Moving down to the unfunded accrued liability, it went down from $48.3 million last year to $43.7 million this year. And that was mainly due to the investment gains and the mortality change as well. And likewise, the funded ratio improved from 83.2% last year to 85.1% this year. We expected the funded ratio to be about 84%, so a slightly higher funded ratio than expected. Moving on to page 5, where we see the actuarially determined contribution. Again, over the last 5 years, the top portion of the page graphs the three components to the contribution. And you'll notice the normal cost, which is the bottom portion of the darker green section, it went down from last year to this year. That's primarily a function of the decrease in the population. Again, the normal cost is represented by the present value benefits expected to be earned by your active members, so those still working for the town who are in the plan. And as that count declines over time, that portion of the contribution will also decline. The past service costs is the middle section of that. That also went down, and that's primarily because the funded status of the plan improved. The unfunded accrued liability went down by more than expected. Therefore, the amortization of that underfunded accrued liability went down as well. And so the net impact is that the contribution went from $6.1 million last year to $5.3 million this year. We expected the contribution to be around $6 million this year, so it's slightly lower, a little bit lower than expected, but primarily due to the decrease in the active population, as well as the investment gains that help to improve the funded ratio of the plan. Moving on to page 6, we're showing the same scenarios that we did for the police and fire plan. Again, the baseline assumes that we do not fully phase in the remaining assumption changes from last year. The middle portion of the 25 valuation column represents finishing that phase in. So that increases the contribution from 5.5 million to 5.6 million. And then lastly, reflecting the updated mortality table, this had a slightly larger impact on the liability for the town employees than it did for the police and fire. But it brought down the contribution from 5.6 to 5.3 million. But again, this does represent the most up-to-date mortality assumption available to us. Therefore, was our recommendation to use it this year. And then moving on to page 7, we have the projection of the contribution over the next 10 years or so. And again, you'll see from fiscal year 27 to fiscal year 28, a slight increase in the contribution. Again, that's because of that recognition of that investment loss from fiscal year 22. It will fully be recognized right at that point in time. And then you'll see a decline over the next 3 years as we've recognized the gains from the last 3 years of strong returns. And then the contribution somewhat levels off at just under $4 million for the remaining portion of the projection. At the end of the 10-year period, we expect the plan to be 94% funded and about 6 years away from being 100% funded due to the 16-year amortization schedule that we're currently at. And that's all I have for this plan. I'll take any questions related to this plan.
Anybody have questions?
I'm just confused on the handout. So for the town, shouldn't the number be higher? Am I totally lost?
No, that number is a combination of the town, the Board of Ed, pension. I mean, the town's only like 2,888.
Yeah.
It's because it's a subset of that number. That 5 million includes
Other ones on here?
the 288, the 297, 415 for the WPPA, the 251, 525, and the Board of Ed for 1,894. You gotta add up all those numbers to get, I just was trying to figure that out
Okay,
myself.
thank you.
Yeah, and if you look at page 6, you could see that those numbers broken down at the bottom portion of the page.
Walsh?
Don?
Oh,
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
The question, the improvement, the value for the Board of Ed, 1.894723, is that an improvement as well?
Yeah, it went down from 2.268 last year.
0.26.
Okay, Bob? Go ahead, Mr. Walsh.
Ms. Castellano, in both presentations, you made note of the fact that some of the numbers, you didn't hit the targets you wanted to hit because salaries went up by a higher percent than at least last year we were predicting, correct?
Correct.
So what did you predict last year and what did they go up to as a percentage?
You just bear with me for a second.
On each, if you can, on both plans.
Yeah, so on the police and fire plan, well, I can tell you in totality, we expected overall payroll to increase to about, well, actually, that's not going to work out. It was about 9.1% higher than expected on the police and fire.
Okay.
And on the town, if you just give me a second to pull that one up. Again, it was about 1%. Nope, that's the wrong line. Sorry, about 0.3% higher than expected.
0.3%?
Yeah.
Okay. And where do you get those figures from when you're making your predictions like last year about what this year would be?
So that was a result of the experience study. And we look at the contracts that are in place for all the collective bargaining units. And that there's step increases as well as gross wage increases built into those contracts. We take that into consideration in developing the expectation of salary improvements over the future years. And so that's for the most part how we developed that. Now, keep in mind, we made recommendations to those changes last year, but only 50% of those changes were reflected. So there was still a bit of a disconnect there as a result.
Okay. So we have a number of contracts that are outstanding right now. So you'll talk to the administration or the finance team about if any of those get settled. Big if, right? So, you know.
Right. Yeah. So for those contracts that are outstanding, we talk to the administration, to the town, and ask them for their best estimate as to where they think it might settle. So we can reflect some anticipation of a wage growth in the upcoming year, so that we can reflect as close to reality as possible. Obviously, wherever it does land, there'll be some variance. There could be some variance there, and that'll iron itself out with the next year's valuation.
Okay, and then on page 5 of your report,
Mhm.
outside, in the top green shaded graphs,
Yep.
far right on the 26, 27, you pointed out that basically the normal cost has gone down because it's less money we're having to invest because we're not less people in the plan. Is that correct?
There's less, yeah, so that number is purely a function of the active membership. So as the active membership decreases, because the plan is closed, so as people retire, new people are being hired by the town, but they're not coming into this plan.
Yeah.
They're going, so as that number decreases, we expect that darker green number to go down. Eventually it'll be zero.
That'd be zero, but for every year from now on, that dark green numbers should be going down.
Should be, yes.
Good, okay. And hopefully get to zero in 15 to 20 years, probably.
Probably, yes.
Great. Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thanks, Jeff.
Mr. Myers.
Really quickly, the terminated members on the town side, you have 104.
Mhm.
On the fire side, police and fire, it was only like 4. Is there
Yeah.
like a longer waiting period for the town side? It seems high that there'd be 104 before they can be able to receive benefits.
So you're on the town side, I believe it's 62 is normal retirement age, for most of the groups. But of that 100, half of them are not even entitled to a monthly benefit in the future. They're not vested, so they didn't work for the town long enough to become vested in a monthly benefit. They're only entitled to a refund of their member contributions, but they have not elected to take them yet. And so that's half of them. The other half is they're entitled to a benefit at some point in the future. They just have not elected to start that benefit yet. That is fairly common to have very few terminated vested members in police and fire plans. Generally speaking, police and fire employees will stay with a town until they reach retirement age, and then they'll leave employment and start to benefit. Very few terminate with a short amount of service and become vested and will have a deferred benefit. So it's more common to see that on general employees population than it is for public safety.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay. There are the OPEB numbers. I don't know if I didn't see that in the backup that was posted online, but that is it's not really a presentation because this is the off year for the OPEB. So what that means is that we don't collect updated demographic information. We just update the assets and use a projected liability. And so on that basis, you can kind of, the OPEB, I mean, I can share my screen if you'd like, as I don't think anyone has this backup. I'm not sure if anyone has this backup actually. But let me know how you'd like to handle that.
Sure, you can share your screen.
Can we share it if we get a copy?
Can you
Yeah.
send us a copy, send it to Tom Harris?
Yeah, Tom has a copy, so everything's been provided to the town already.
Share it with us.
So I can share my screen. Just give me a moment here. So this is on the police and fire. Oops, hold on, hit share. Let me know when you can see. Okay, so this is on the police and fire OPEB plan. Again, there was a good return. So the plan returned 13.3% during the year. So assets performed well. Moving on to the actuarial value of assets. So now we just started smoothing assets 3 years ago for the OPEB plan. So that poor return in fiscal year 22 is not factored in to the OPEB actuarial value of assets because we didn't start smoothing assets until July 1st, 2023. So because of that, on the OPEB side, the actuarial value of assets is much less than the market value. It's 51 million versus 56 million on a market value. So there's about $4.8 million of deferred gains to be recognized still. But that will help to put downward pressure on future contributions similar to the pension. Moving on to the calculation of the contribution. Again, the accrued liability does not reflect updated information. This is purely an actuarial projection, assuming that all the assumptions come true, will reflect, and that's common for the OPEB plan. We don't do valuations every year. We do them every other year in the even years. So we'll reflect that with next year's valuation. But on a projected basis, the accrued liability grew from 90.7 million last year to just under $98 million this year. The good return helped to improve the funded ratio from 49.3% last year to 52%. Again, we're at a 16-year amortization period with that 2% growth rate. So the amortization of the unfunded accrued liability is at just under $4.1 million. The normal cost grew from $2.2 million last year to 2.6. We offset the normal cost by expected member contributions. So these are contributions by active employees. So your police and fire active employees are contributing to the OPEB trust while active members, similar to how they do for the pension plan. So that offsets the normal cost dollar for dollar. And then we adjust it for any expected administrative expenses that are expected to be paid from the trust in the upcoming year to arrive at the net normal cost of $1.9 million. Again, we adjust that with interest to take into account the timing difference between the calculation and when the contribution is actually made. And we arrive at a total contribution for fiscal year 27 of $6.4 million, up from just under 5.8 last year. And the contribution is actually lower than we expected it to be because, again, we expected the plan to return 6.9% on a market value basis, but the actual market return was 13.4% for the year. So the favorable asset experience resulted in a lower contribution than we expected. And that's so go ahead.
No, I thought you were done. You done with that?
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done with this plan. Yes.
All I want to say is it's very hard to read it and.
Yeah, it's
It's not your fault, but
I just have mine.
But here's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna spend a lot of time. If a member has a question about what was
Sure.
just presented, feel free to ask it in a second. But what I would ask is we get copies of this, get it to the members. If a member has a specific question, get the question to Mr. Harris and we'll get an answer. We'll make sure the question and answer are posted online. Is that fair for everybody? Yes. Anybody have a question about this right now? What you heard? Mr. Walsh, you have one? Go ahead.
So you're saying that is it 16 years from now that we should actuarially, if we keep following this, be at 100% funded? Or are we already into the 16 years
16 years from now.
from now?
Yes.
Does that become 16 years every single year?
Next year it'll be 15 years. So it declines by one every year.
Just wanted to make sure that we're going down.
Yeah.
Another 16.
So
Years
it
now,
was 17 last year and it's 16 this year. It'll be 15 next year and so on and so forth.
And when we started it, what was it, 20 years or 25?
I think it was 25.
We're getting there,
We're doing the right thing.
getting there.
Mr. Myers?
So I don't know if we can make this assumption, but similarly, when you looked out for the next 10 years on the pension, you showed it sort of leveling off at that like 10 million mark. Is it possible that this will level off at this 6.4, 6.5, 7, or is that going to continue to be more of a upward?
I think this is going to be more of an upward trajectory because you're only at 52% funded So the pension plans are better funded. And that's because you've been funding them for much longer than you have the OPEB. So I think the trajectory is going to be a little steeper than it will be for the pension plan to get to that 100% funding from where we are currently. And now that being said, 52% funded is better than probably 20, that's probably better than 70% of the state. So it's a good funded ratio for an OPEB plan, a very good funded ratio.
And the rate of increase in healthcare costs negatively impact this, correct?
Yeah, yes. So to the extent, and again, this number this year reflects our assumed increase in the healthcare costs from last year to this year. To the extent healthcare costs have increased by more than assumed, that won't get recognized until next year. And we'll true that up next year when we see what actually happened with your healthcare costs over the 2-year period.
For the current year, what was the percent increase that you assumed for healthcare cost increase?
If you just give me a second, I will pull that up. We assumed that that's last year's assumption, sorry about that. We assumed that the pre-65 plans would increase by about 6.3% over the last year, and that the post-65 plans, the Medicare supplement plans, would increase by 7.1%.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Stark.
Does anyone on the call or in this room have a time series that shows the funded status for, say, the past 30 years? Just so we could see that.
We haven't been in this fund for 30 years. We only entered this fund probably 10 years ago, like 9 years ago.
Is it only that long?
Yeah.
All right, then that's not that hard to recreate. Never mind.
No, it should be available. Yeah, but it went up pretty fast.
Well, I mean, police and fire.
Oh, police and fire.
Yeah,
I
I'm
thought you were
sorry.
talking about OPEB.
Yeah, sorry. Do we have that anywhere? Does anybody have it? Just be curious to see it.
So on
We're
the,
talking
for
about
the
16-year amortization. We may as well see what the long-term picture looks like.
I can work with them. I think we can get that.
We can get that, Kevin.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Anybody else?
Seeing the Madoff hits is a good look.
That's exactly what I would like to see. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Jim, can you say your follow-up question for me? I'm trying to keep the notes of it this time. What you wanted Phil to get. Can you just rephrase it so I can put it in my,
Can we send it to you or what do you want me to do it right now?
What did you want?
just what do you want for I'm just trying to keep the follow-up request.
Police and fire or would
You asked Phil about-
You asked Phil for something. I want to.
Ask two for something?
Bill Pierce.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh, for Phil Pierce. I wanted to know whether the pension board the JREB has the ability to increase or decrease. Well, basically to give an employee on a settlement more than they are contractually required to get based on their years of service. Part of a settlement.
to alter the
And
benefits.
if so, whether they have actually done that over the last 5 years, and if so, how many employees over the last year, by year, and dollars by year for 5 years? Is that what you understood, Phil?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. I think,
And can I ask for the same thing on the town side? But Phil, I don't know whether you do that or I have to ask the first selectman for that, so select woman for that. I'd like to get on both sides. For both police and fire and for the town. First select woman is Natalie, do you know of any situations where that has happened? You don't have to give me names, but in your tenure on the Board of Selectmen or as first select woman, have you seen that happen?
Don't know if it was more than years of service, but it is.
Say that one more time.
Once, maybe. I don't remember off the top of my head for exact numbers.
Okay.
we'll get that.
But I don't know if it was I don't know the dollar amount, how it corresponded to their years of service of what it would have been.
And Phil, just to predict the question, if there is somebody that did that, are we allowed to get information on the specific circumstances on that? And I don't need an answer tonight if you want to look into that, because I'm not trying to breach anybody's privacy. But if you can just let me know whether that's a possibility. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're all set on this. Thank you so much for your presentations. Much
My
appreciated.
pleasure. Take care.
I think what you provided us is really helpful. Well done.
Thank you.
Now, let's move on to the next matter, administrative in general. 1320, budget book, active employee benefits, health and life. It's on page 67. According to my notes, we have Joel Chamberlain, Man's life insurance agent broker, will present this item along with Carlton. Adrian, and who else? And Gina. Gina Williams, our HR director. Is that correct? Come on up. You can go sit over there, Gina. See ya. And again, this is on page 67 of the budget book. Are these, Tom, are these the right numbers in the budget book?
Yes.
They are, okay. It's changed.
Is Joel gonna speak?
Is Joel here?
I'm here. Yes. I
We're gonna turn
apologize. I
it,
wasn't able to turn my camera on, but I'm here. Can you hear me?
we can hear you right well.
Okay. So in terms of the active healthcare, as you may recall, as of 7/1 of 25, the town changed its insurance carrier to Cigna on a fully insured basis. And the part of that proposal was a second year rate guarantee, a rate cap, such that the 7/1 of 26 renewal premium rates would not exceed a plus 13.9% increase. And the dental and vision rates were guaranteed flat for that second year. So we expect that the Cigna rates will increase by the cap, but it's somewhat it's guaranteed that it wouldn't increase more than that cap. When we combine the medical, dental, and vision premiums, we expect a 13.2% increase in the total gross premium. And after the offset of employee contributions towards those rates, that the net effect is a plus 13.1% increase to the healthcare costs, medical, pharmacy, dental, and vision.
So am I reading this wrong? The budget book says a 13.48%.
Yeah, I think they may have updated the employee contribution portion of this since we did the budget book.
Okay, so this number will change from what's in the budget book.
Yeah.
It'll change better, yeah.
It's better than what we budgeted.
When will we get that number?
We'll get that tomorrow, probably.
So we'll get an updated sheet to substitute in page 67 of the budget book with that information.
Yes.
Okay.
And that number's good through when? Like, when's that actuary, when's that number, the most recent number, like, good through? Like when does it update again?
Sure. Those rates are flat for the 12-month period. So they change each year on 7/1.
7/1.
Yes.
I guess the question I have is why do we have a different number now? Like, what changed if we knew 7/1 was a lot of months ago? I mean, so
Yeah.
why did the number change?
And The only thing that could change the rates, well, the rates wouldn't change, but the enrollment head counts could have a little bit of variability, not very much. This population is very pretty static. But the enrollment by the total head count enrolled in the plan could change month to month, and there could be changes between, employee only coverage versus spouse coverage versus family coverage. Again, this population is pretty steady, so those changes tend to be very minimal.
Okay, so that's the change we're gonna see is really headcount? That's what's gonna change.
I don't know if it's that kind of, it could be participation, there may have been people who took coverage, who don't take coverage. I mean, that can change. That would be the kind of change that we would have, that would affect this. Head count shouldn't have the change at this point.
So Jerry, you have a question? Go ahead.
When people make their elections back in November, why is that still a moving target?
Turnover or census. If somebody new is hired and if they take.
Oh, you just said
We have
that
new,
head
but we
count
have new
doesn't make
employees
change.
who've come on since we did this in July. At this point, there's headcount shouldn't change it. We have a headcount number in the budget. But, to the extent we have someone in the budget, when they make an election, that could change on July 1.
Are we keeping a list of, do you have a list going of all these changes? Because on the last page, we have a total of 231,000 decrease. I mean, is there gonna be,
There is a list, yeah. You have the list from,
so this is on that list?
this is not on, the insurance change is not on the list.
No, I mean, the stuff that we also, the retiree benefits and stuff, that's all. So
That's on that was on the list, yes.
I had a few other questions.
Go ahead.
If you don't mind. So the cap, the increase of this for the new plan for Cigna, it could go up 13.9% year over year, right? That's what you said?
That was the cap.
That was
That's the cap.
And that's what it is going up. It is going up. Cap.
But we don't have an official, as Joel said, we don't have the official quote from them, but we expect that it's gonna be the cap, yeah.
If you got an agreement for the second year, how high can that rate go?
13.9%, that's it. They
No, for
can't-
the second year, it can go up that.
Well,
And
then,
what about the third year?
the
What about
third year is
next
an open question. The third year, I mean, we'll look at the proposal from Cigna versus looking at going to another carrier.
Well, when we moved to this carrier, when you move insurance plans, it's disruptive to families.
Understood,
And
but
a
it's
lot of
also
people were very
expensive.
upset about this. So I'm just curious, what were we seeing historically with the last carrier? What were those increases? 'Cause I don't remember it being that
Well,
large.
we were self-insured.
Remember?
We were self-insured.
This is the first year we had a policy. A year ago, we were self-insured,
Right.
so we're going into year 2 of having a insurance policy. And then we'll see where we are in year 3. What you can do is you can go out to bid again. and
Yeah,
shop
you can do that.
around.
I mean, it's certainly disruptive, but you look at the disruption versus the incremental cost and you make a decision.
I mean, if you look back to the actuals though, for this line, it was 11 million, 11,000,006, 11,000,001. And then it's now proposed for 14, so this would lead me to believe that it wasn't a good decision or.
Well, cost have gone up too.
Yeah.
Cost have gone up.
Yeah, the costs go up for health insurance every year, so I don't know how we were so lucky to have 3 years of actuals being 11. That's like, that's unheard of.
Those figures just follow up in that, the 2025, 24. That's, those 11 million that changed figures are for what? Paying us self-insured, right?
Right.
And so do we know, has anyone, and I'm sorry to interrupt
Oh,
you,
please.
has anyone done an analysis that had we stayed self-insured for 26, what the number would be? If we stayed self-insured for 27, what the number would be? Has anyone ever done that?
No, we haven't done that detail.
Is that something?
I
we can
recommend
do?
it,
Yeah.
definitely.
I think it's something we look at, we are locked into this year. It's sort of,
I know
we
we're
can,
locked
we can
in.
look at, next year, I think is the time.
Yeah.
We can look at.
My question basically is, are we saving money by paying an insurance policy? That's it.
Well, yeah, because obviously there's benefits for this type of system.
Yeah.
The one we have now, and that the internal service fund is really not a major risk.
Yep.
Because when you're self-insured, you don't know what the claims are gonna be.
Correct.
So I don't know, like, when you add in those other years, you'd have to see what the difference is between what we collected, and if we collected more or less, you'd have to add or subtract from that number to find out what our total healthcare costs were.
Right.
During that period of time, to be
We had
able
a bad
to
year
compare
that
apples to
year.
apples.
Right. It's hard, right?
Yeah, I mean, because you get whacked with a bad year, that's not showing up on this budget.
Nope.
And if you're self-insured.
Yeah, so this is what we're paying into the
Yeah.
internal service fund.
Yep.
To fund the claims.
Do we have, and maybe this is a different night, are we still paying any claims that accrued prior to being the policy that we're
Yes.
still on the hook for? And that's still in the internal service?
Yeah,
fund?
we have IBNR, and it's we had set up like a $2.5 million reserve to cover those claims. And there's also a policy that covers claims that are more than, I think, $300,000.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Meyer.
So maybe you could help me understand the internal service fund, which I can see what the purpose of that was in terms of being self-insured. But how did our thinking on that fund change when we changed to this Cigna fund? I mean, aren't the claims aren't they maxed at whatever the agreement is or whatever?
It would still, the internal
You don't really
service
have
fund,
any major.
correct me if I'm wrong, the internal service fund still covers heart and hypertension,
Correct.
workers' comp,
Workers' comp and general liability.
and general liability.
Okay.
Three things.
Okay, so when we look at that fund, we are no longer looking at that fund, at least right now with Cigna, as a
Health insurance
potential backstop
Right.
for the health insurance. Which you would have thought would have been the major purpose of that fund, right? That's where you had your most exposure would
Oh,
be
yeah,
in medical.
yeah, that's what it was. yeah.
Okay,
And some years we did okay, did well, and some years we
I
had
mean-
major problems, and
yeah.
thank God some of those years the
Th-
board
this-
did way better, and
This is much more predictable. I think.
Yes,
So,
You don't have the volatility.
yes.
but I guess it'd be good to look historically, like what total, like
We can,
you know, what thing before, look at these healthcare costs. Well, I'm not seeing what a hit on the internal service fund is for medical costs.
And then one other thing, because I don't know if I should be, I'm comparing apples to oranges here, but Jen just spoke of the assumptions for healthcare increases and she used 6 or 7%. We're saying 13%. I mean, it's generally the same population people, or no? Like, is that, was that a disconnect? for
it's the
you? Did you
same,
think that was too
same
low?
population. I think she's generally looking like, I don't know, long-term. I don't know that I can reconcile. I'll
Okay.
talk to, I'm not sure I can reconcile the 7% and 6%. I don't know if that was she was talking in terms of a total, but if it's split, yeah, I would have to go back and follow it.
I would just ask if
Yeah.
you could share
Isn't
that.
that number lower though, because what she's looking at, people retiring.
long-term. It's a different-
65,
yeah.
Most of these people have Medicare. So you're
Correct.
Getting whatever the Medicare cost is, and you're just paying the supplemental cost.
And these are active employees, so it's a little different set of participants.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
Tom, do we, with Cigna, because I'm on our benefits plan at the office, we switched to Cigna. Do you guys get rebates if our claims are less than what we thought they were gonna be? Because we get that and we successfully got it but they use it as a hook. So like, if you want to take advantage of those rebates, so if your claims are less than whatever a certain amount, you have to share in that, but you have to stay in for the next year. It's a way for them to kind of keep you in the system.
There was, I have to check go back and look at the proposal. There were some credits built in. I don't recall exactly how they were, but there were several $100,000 of credits built in when they did the proposal.
And if you have a bad year, obviously you don't get the credits, right? So, but if you had a good year, there was a way for you to recoup a certain percent of what the savings were. And I thought when I asked this question last year to whoever was on with talking about Cigna, they said that was gonna happen.
So Joel, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm still here. What it sounds like you're talking about is a minimum premium arrangement, which is kind of like in between a fully insured arrangement and a self-insured arrangement, where you kind of share in some of the experience on the good side, but have the protection on the bad side.
Okay.
what the town is in right now is a fully insured arrangement. So you pay the premiums, fixed premiums, regardless of how the experience plays out. And you have this rate cap on the second year, such that if the experience was poor, you would be capped at that rate cap. Going forward, that is something that can be explored and analyzed based on, emerging experience and expectations of the next year's renewal. There are, we can evaluate whether staying entirely fully insured or back to a self-insured arrangement or something in between, like this minimum premium arrangement. Those are all options to explore at each renewal.
Then, the supplemental contribution to health insurance, is that what the employees are giving into the system?
No, that was the,
Negative number?
now that's the assumption that we would use the internal service fund.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Of how much we're using against the internal service. So this year, we're anticipating using 4,150,000 in the budget?
That's what's in here, and if you recall, when we did the debt service,
Yes.
assume that it's gonna have to come from the company.
Yeah, that is, yeah, right. There's not enough funds
Right.
left in the service fund. Okay. And then that number is probably gonna be disappearing unless there's a big change in the internal service fund.
Correct, correct.
For the following year.
Correct.
Okay.
Anybody else down there? I just have a real quick follow-up question. When will we know, or not next fiscal year, but the year after? 27, 28. When do you start the process of, for lack of a better term, shopping around, seeing what else is out there, whether we're gonna stay with Cigna? When does that start?
So checking the market is generally, a 8 to 12 week process. And so you would want to do that in the, I'll call it second quarter, right? In the fall, winter time, so that you can do the analysis, have, all of that kind of 12 weeks before right now, right? So that we would have the process done and the analysis so that you can make a decision around this March timeframe.
On your budget for the next year, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr.
And
Welch.
these benefits, like this insurance, it goes on a municipal year, right? 7/1 to 6/30?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
When you said that the retiree benefit changes were on the list, you're talking about this list, right?
Yes.
Can you tell me, I don't see them on this list, like where in this list? Unless the numbers changed again, they're not on this list.
That would be,
The Board of Selectmen.
The WPCA and the FCRD changes are in.
I don't see these numbers on there.
If you look in the WPCA section under pension, the 6416, which is the WPCU, fourth line from the bottom, retirement contributions, the variance of 6416 is on the schedule. And then the 2024,
I'm looking at the schedule and I see three numbers and it's not any of them.
You have an updated schedule.
Then we all do, because I don't have it either. Which is why
Copies
why
of
I asked
these?
the question, because I
Get us
didn't pull
that.
this out because
I
it
will
wasn't
get
on
you
here.
that.
All right, thank you.
Is it?
Nothing's dated. They don't have pensions. So what do you think? It's dated?
Would you be able to put what date it is so we know what version we're dealing with?
Certainly.
Version as of.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think as a matter of policy, if you could put dates and page numbers on things, just in general, it'd be a good idea.
Thank you. So Cheryl pointing that out. Anybody else on this?
Are we getting a new one now? I'm sorry, I missed, or are you?
No, it'll be
Be for Thursday?
Thursday, yes.
Okay, and that'll include this other number. The one we're talking
The
about. right now.
healthcare,
Yeah.
yeah, yes.
And make, if We can ask questions on Thursday.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Fair enough?
And
ahead, Mr.
Joel, or whoever made the presentation, I think it was Joel, the increase in gross premium is 13.2%. Is that correct? And then if you deduct contributions from employees, it's 13.1%. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Is this the opportunity to talk about the internal service fund?
Someone from the public has their hand up. We're not taking any questions right now from the public, so thank you. Anybody else?
Is this the time to talk about the internal service?
Go
fund,
ahead.
or
You
is
have a
that-
question about it? Go.
Just to refresh me on, what happened with what we assumed last year, and then what happened with the actuarial calculation that resulted in a bigger liability. I just need to get my head around it.
Yeah, we had, I think the first thing that happened was you transferred the liability from heart and hypertension from the general fund into the internal service fund. So that was $3.5 million. And then we had claims that have come through this year. And we had an adjustment to the reserves have increased. So the net balance, fund balance now is about $2 million as a result of those changes.
And that's why it's coming out of debt service and not, where we can't.
Right. We had assumed when we did the budget that 3.6 million would come out of internal service fund. But obviously we don't have those funds available now.
Where were the increased claims from? What type of increased claims like that were higher than you expected? Because obviously it impacted you not being able to use $4 million out of the internal service fund towards the health insurance.
Well, we had workman compensation claims, some of which were funded. And we had medical claims that were carried over from medical claims that came through from the previous year. I mean, those are the large items that are in there. But the big change, I mean, when we looked at the fund balance at the end of last year was $12 million. When you transferred heart and hypertension and right away, effectively, at the beginning of the year, the balance was down $8 million.
Still a lot of money.
Yeah.
We're at $2 million where we are now. So what was the breakout of?
Well, you normally you have, on an average basis, you have about $6 million of losses aside from medical, and that's about what you had this year. You have in terms of activity, expenses that came through the fund versus revenues that were contributed, which is basically just the workers' comp. So you had losses in the fund of about $6 million, which is about what you've had every year for the past couple of years.
We've had $6 million of workers' comp claims.
Of claims and, yeah, general liability, workers' comp.
Want to follow up? on
I just
that,
want
Ms.
to, I want to follow up to Mr. Jurio's question. The OPEB savings and the retirement savings, that was realized. The Board of Selectmen made those adjustments. So that initial page that you received the very first night, we realized those changes at the Board of Select Persons, level. So it wouldn't be on the running total of adjustments that this board would be making, because the Board of Select Persons already made.
So we had the information originally, but not on.
So it's
There's
not-
already made a change.
So they're
Yeah.
Taken into
It's
consideration.
already been considered.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? Seeing no one else, let's move on to,
Just one more, and just similar to the pension savings, also the Board of Education took that
Yeah, you're right.
into consideration. So that's already been identified as a superintendent. On the report at the last.
thank you, everyone. Good questions. Next is human resources. It's 1330. It's on page 67, 68. We're gonna first do operations. Director Gina Williams is here. Welcome. Can you
Hi,
take us
good
through?
evening. Thank you very much. My name is Gina Williams. I'm the-
Meet you.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Good to be here. So I'll go through my operations budget.
Way down from last year.
Well,
We're on page 69
seven,
and
697.
in the budget.
So I'll start at the top. The regular payroll, we have 6 full-time FTEs in the department. There has been no request for any additional FTEs. You'll see that the salary has gone down a bit. We have taken an assistant director position and redeployed that to a different title. So that works out well. And go down to 51160 longevity bonus. That applies to one staff member in my department through a negotiated MOU. So that's for one person. 51180 fringe deferred comp town match. So this represents the employer match or the town match for an employee who puts enough money into the 457 and the town contributes $1,000 per person. So that's what that represents if the 6 individuals in HR decide to put that into the 457. Social
Can
Security.
I ask you a question
Yes.
about that? Is that an increase in like the 401A or a different type of plan?
So it's different
Okay, what kind of,
for 457.
okay, do other employees other than your employees qualify for this?
They do have the option for non-union employees have that option.
And when was that decision made? So I guess, are you saying that that's happening globally in the town, on the town side?
I'm saying it's a benefit that's available to non-union employees.
Is that a new benefit?
I don't believe so, but I'll have to.
No, it's
How about the
not.
extra $1,000?
It's for department heads.
Department heads or just non-union?
None.
There's not six department heads.
No, it's salaried, non-union employees.
Okay. And when was that
Participating
change
in
made?
457.
I think that's the best I can.
And when was that change made?
For the forfeit. I don't know, but I can find out.
Yeah, there had to be a change, right? Because they're also now, we're having to put $1,000 per employee if the employee chooses to take advantage of it, correct?
That is correct.
I
And
think some of the employees, the classification for some of these employees changed though.
That's correct. So this, I hope this is helpful. Before this budget year, this upcoming budget, the employees and human resources had the benefits from the PETA contracts, which was
Yes.
a different collective
Yes.
bargaining agreement. That changed, so they were no longer getting the benefits of that contract, and now they're eligible for this particular benefit as non-union confidential.
So would that would that have been something approved by the Board of Selectmen at some point?
Last June. I think we voted on that when we did the cost of living adjustments.
Okay,
Or last May.
at some point, did the Board of Selectmen agree to offer a 457 type plan to non-union employees? And I thought Tom said he thought this had been around for a while.
I think I believe it has not, there was a plan or a plan like this. That's been around.
Well, why don't we do this? Can you just find out for us and let us know? Because I'm curious about that too.
And if somebody could find out like, through this budget on the town side, how many people are qualified for this and how much more is it costing us this year? I was hoping maybe somebody would have told us this, like applies to every department, I guess, right?
Department heads.
Not,
No.
non-union employees have an
Yeah,
option.
non-union, so.
I am assuming at some point, Jim, the Board of Selectmen voted to approve something like this.
For select woman, Vitale, like you have some of these employees in your department, right? Because they're non-union. So I'm sure I haven't looked at your book again, I'll have to go back, but that should probably been increased by $3,000 or something like that.
I think we discussed that when we did that.
Okay.
That may have been when it came up originally.
Okay, we'll find out. If we could just find out how many employees this applies to?
And then just a quick question, then we'll move on. Can non-union employees participate in the town's 401 or just the 457? Do they have a choice?
401A.
They can do that too.
Is this contribution here? What is that match? What's part of the 401?
457.
457.
So they can participate in one or the other or both if they want to.
I need to.
Okay, that's
If
fine.
you don't mind.
No, that's all right.
Sheena?
I think to Mr. Walsh's point, if you look at page 19,
19?
you see the fringe for town match is going up from 27,000 to 37,000, which would imply an increase of 10 and 1,000 each this year over last across all departments. Right?
So I think I can answer some of the questions.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm Joanne Courtmanch, Labor Relations Specialist. So the 457 and the 401A have always been benefits for, well, used to be the policy for just department heads. The confidential employees always followed PETA. Over the summer, probably around June, it was determined that we should not be following a contract, a collective bargaining agreement, especially since I'm involved in the negotiations of those contracts. So, I'm sorry?
Conflict.
That's right. So, we confidential employees, I think they were about 7 or 8 at the time, were moved to follow the department head, which became the non-union confidential employee policy for everybody. It was presented to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Selectmen approved it. So previously, we were only provided the 401A. 401A is mandatory for anyone not eligible for pension. But then we have the option of contributing to the 457, both PETA, when we followed PETA, as well as now. The difference is that under the non-union confidential policy, there is a match, an employer match. So the employee has to contribute a minimum of $2,000 into the 457 to receive a $1,000 employer match. So that's kind of how this all came about. So the 5 of us who are confidential, other than the HR director position, now have that benefit. So that's where the extra $5,000 comes from, whereas previously it was just 1,000. Does that make sense? Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead. You have a
Before we go
follow-up on that?
further, has anything changed with the 401A in the last year? Where are we giving, like, because we never get updated on this stuff. So if any change happens, well, first of all, I want to just ask, has anything changed with the 401A on how much it's costing the town, how much we will contribute?
So I can tell you that there has been a change to the contribution amount. It went from a 5% to a 10% with a match, with an employer match in the non-union confidential policy. So that was also put before the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
And I believe that was presented before the change came about where the confidential employees were housed. So there were a couple of times where this non-union department head policy went before.
So before it was the employee could put up 5% and the town could put up
Would match
5%.
5%, up to 5%, yeah.
And the employee could not put in more than 5%,
That's
but just
correct.
not be matched. It could max out at 5%.
No, because it's a replacement for a pension
Okay,
plan
yeah.
is how it's been
Yeah.
explained. The mandatory employee contribution has to be the same for everybody.
Yeah.
And then the match was at the same match at 5%.
Alright.
So those 5%, both the employee, employer, went up to 10%. And I'm not really sure when that happened, but it happened a few months prior to, I believe, to when we changed to house the confidentials in that policy.
That's a huge change. That's doubling it.
Yeah, I
And-
didn't have anything to do with that, so, and I don't know what the cost was, but
So
I'm just
people-
reporting that
The
that was
Board
a
of
change.
Selectmen approved that, or did in the
I
first
believe-
selectman change that?
No, I believe it went before the Board of Selectmen. Is that correct, Christine?
I believe it did. I'm trying to find what the name of it.
Can I get a calculation? I don't need it right now. What that total cost was in this budget?
I would have to ask finance for that.
Because you're doubling it. And
So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding. So previously, confidential employees who were not department heads, but they were not union, so they used to follow.
One of the collective bargaining
And
agreements.
used to deliver, but they always were able to put in 5% into their 401(a) and then they get 100% match on that. So
That's correct.
Okay, and
under
now-
PETA.
now they can put in up to 10, they can also get 100% match on
It's
that.
mandatory 10, it's
Mandatory.
not up to 10, it's mandatory
Okay.
with a 10% employee or employer match.
Okay. Yeah, that is stuff.
Hey, Bob.
Huge numbers.
Bob, did you? can
That's
you
on
just-
page
the
19.
Page you cited to a few minutes ago where you were mentioning that, is that page 9 of the, what page were you looking
Page
at?
19.
19.
And it also shows a significant increase in town retirement contributions, 401(a). To your point, coinciding with going from the 5 to the 10%.
So that would be,
We're going up
is
by
that the fringe,
$200,000.
the fringe defined comp? Town match 51, 180.
Yeah.
I'm on page 19.
That's the fringe, but if you look a little lower, 52,312, things would be the item
Oh, I see.
pertaining to the change from.
Yeah,
5
it's
to
up
10%.
19% from last year. Okay.
So it's going up by 200,000. As a result of that.
What's the line number?
It's 52,312
On page 19.
on page 19,
Oh,
just lower on the page.
All right.
Is there a tax maximum on it? I mean, could the Board of Selectmen just increase it to 50%?
I have
Or we'll give
no
a
idea what
50%
that
match.
answer is. That would be.
There's a limit
finance
to what's
question.
pensionable, right?
Yeah, I'm wondering like, what's the max on that?
There's a limit on what amount of income, but I mean, none of these employees are.
Ms. Ruggiero?
I mean, I don't know the answer to this question, so that's what I want to ask, but is it customary that changes for employee benefits and impact to the budget don't go before the Board of Finance?
Yeah, we don't have any authority on that. That's a Board of Selectmen issue. So,
I would suggest, I mean, this is for our budget committee, I guess, to get a handle of, but in previous years with the budget director, we've gotten a list of assumptions that have changed from one year to the next, so that we could all start off looking at a new budget, know what has changed. And I think we need to get that now on.
We're in our fourth meeting. This is the first we're hearing about.
This is. I mean, we should get, like, Frank used to give us that. I know Linda Gardner used to give us that. We would get a list of changes that applied globally throughout the budget, that had changed because we'd all gotten used to the budget. And, you know, shame on me, I guess I should have seen this 19% increase on page 19. But I normally go budget to budget and not looking at overall these object codes in a whole list.
so I think that's fair. I would imagine that the decision was made that to try to keep good employees, that the town wanted to raise that contribution and matching number. And, you know, it would be interesting to see what other municipalities do with respect to something like this. So, but I understand what you're saying, Mr. Wall. Mr. Myers, go ahead.
I think I heard you say that it's mandatory. The 10% is mandatory.
401s.
401.
For 401, yeah.
So if you're gonna play, it's a mandatory 10%, or you have to do 10%? You
It's a
work for this town, you
mandatory-
have to do 10%.
Yes.
Have to. I mean, any employees come to you and say, hey, you know, I can't, I gotta pay my kids' tuition this year. I want to take a break. And then I'll start putting into my 401(a). Can they come to you and say,
I can't put in 10%.
I don't believe anybody has come forward. I can't speak to it. Nobody
Nobody has come
has
to
come
me.
to me.
Okay. So they're looking at it as, this is great. I've got plenty of extra cash. I can
can't
put
speak to
10%
every
and I can get
department.
10% from the town. I mean, like, I'm a little surprised.
I can say from my perspective, right, because I've been here for 6 weeks, that was a tremendous draw.
Okay.
10% match.
Very generous.
See, what I'm hearing, maybe Ms. Patali, you can provide some insight since you were on the board of selectmen, was that we really wanted Mr. Batiste from Stanford. And he was in it. Stanford had a pension fund and we don't. We have a 401A. And in order to get him, we needed to go from this 5% to the 10%.
That was not a discussion that was had at the board when we voted on this, the board of select persons.
So what was the impetus for this then? There must have been an impetus that was explained to you guys. Somebody.
I think you answered your own question.
No?
I
Okay.
think a lot of municipalities have pensions. We don't have a defined pension anymore.
Mhm.
So we have to do things like this.
Okay.
I think that's the answer.
All right. So
I
I
mean,
can.
a lot of,
Yeah,
lot of
so,
municipalities-
John, maybe that was the argument.
Yeah.
So I can look back, you think, of whatever meeting that was.
I will go
You
back.
sent us a meeting, and I can look back and there's gonna be a big conversation about for your board, which there should have been. That said, we're having a hard time like getting employees to come over here. That's really what the conversation should have been, because that's really the only justification to change it overnight and double it. We are having a great difficulty recruiting people, our HR person, your previous predecessor. And therefore, we are going to make a request to the Board of Selectmen to change this from 5% to 10%, or every other community who has 401As are doing the same thing. They're maxed out at 10%. So if you can send us the Board of Selectmen meeting, so I would love to watch that meeting, so I have a little bit more in-depth knowledge about it, but there is talk that it was based on one employee to be able to recruit. Now, that might have been a whole beginning of a conversation, but I'd like to see that meeting.
And I did not have a conversation with Mr. Batiste. and-
Okay, so I'd like to see the meeting. So if you could send that to us tomorrow, I'd appreciate that. It would save me having to search it down, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
okay, Mr. Williams, why don't you just continue going through?
Sure.
um,
Sure. So the next line in social security is almost flat, slightly here. Information technology. So we have a slight decrease for information technology. This is, there's a couple of reasons for that. I can tell you that we no longer, for example, use a separate vendor for background checks. We can actually do those background checks by using Paycom. We do pay our applicant tracking system out of this line, so that's called Neogo.
But Paycom charges you for those, because we read the contract that we got. They charge you for those. It's just built into
Cheaper.
Paycom costs.
So it's built.
They're not free. I mean, when we read all the different charges they charge you for, some of those costs were a lot higher than we thought they were, but when you gave us the complete breakdown, one of those was the background searches per employee.
Right, but we were able to do away
Okay.
with the other.
Okay.
And it's
Thank you.
less than Sterling.
You're welcome. Line 53200, fees and professional services, there's been no change going forward, and those are fees we pay for things like our EAP provider, training, our board of mediation. We use an outside company, obviously, for random drug testing, so that's what's there. I'm going to go down to, because those next four are not in budget here. Line 55, 300 for communications, no change at all. We do various, outreach and mailings to retirees, so on and so forth.
The rest of this, the next 3 or 4 lines are no change.
Right, there's no change, so.
Nothing, and if anyone has a question about that, that's fine. And then you go to Educational memberships is, well, actually, I'm sorry, workers' comp loss prevention, it's zeroed out. Why is that?
That's in risk management.
Risk management now, that's right. Educational membership,
No
six
change.
thousand, no change. Travel and meetings is flat. And then the heart and hypertension workers'
management,
comp's
risk
been
management.
zeroed out, it's in risk management. I guess what I would ask you, the big change, and people can follow up is really, if you look in the next page in your budget, is you don't have the same number of employees, which is saving your department a lot of money. Tell us a little bit about that. Is it just a different way you see human resources office operating? Why do we have three less, I think three less employees, it looks like.
No, it's the
Same
same.
as- they
That's the
moved-
same number.
moved
Where'd
to
they
this
move
different
it?
role.
Taken out of there.
I'm sorry, I'm wrong. I misread that. My fault. Thank you. All right. But they moved to different roles. Go ahead, Mr. Meyer.
So the benefits manager went from 123,951 to 105. Did the person leave and we hired somebody cheaper or?
We do. We have our new benefits manager started in October.
Oh, okay. And then maybe you could just describe the idea, or maybe you talk about your org chart in terms of how you reconfigured these three PETA positions into the three human resource associate positions.
So that wasn't under my directorship. What I will tell you though is that I'm currently taking an opportunity to really see what I have going forward. I think this is the right time to do that. So I'm looking forward to that. And keeping it budget neutral.
So you're kind of assessing
Yes.
over the next several months, where you want to be and what to do. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Myers, follow up.
Yeah, just one other follow-up. So payroll has been a difficult topic as far as internal audits have come in this town. And there is a little bit of confusion from what you see in the internal reports as to really who owns payroll. And in my experience, companies I've worked with, there's always an HR and a finance role to payroll. And I want to understand your perspective on how you will participate in payroll, given that I believe Tom is saying that it's, I think, his responsibility, but I'd like to hear your perspective.
Sure. So I've seen it in municipalities both ways. I've seen it live totally in finance and I've seen it live in HR. In our organization, it really does live in finance. However, I do see ourselves, in general terms, I see HR and finance, being partners and collaborative when it comes to things like payroll and budget planning. So we do, we are, I think, very good partners in terms of supporting that function when questions come about or somebody's role or rate up has to be updated. But I do totally understand why it does live in finance. And where we can play a supportive role. I do know that we work very closely with the the payroll clerk in the finance department. I hope that answers your question. And it may take some more analysis from my perspective.
You've been there 6 weeks.
Yes.
Anybody have a follow-up, Ms. Ruggiero?
Are all 6 of these full-time positions filled today?
No, I have one open vacancy.
One open, and that would have to be in the human resources associates, I assume?
That is correct. In total honesty, of course, I may not post it as such, depending on what I think our needs are going forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Mr. Walsh, go ahead.
So have you worked with the Paycom system since you've been here for your 6
Yes.
weeks? And number one, welcome aboard.
Thank
And I'm
you.
looking forward to working with you because looking for a fresh start.
Thank you.
And I've heard great things about you.
Oh, thank you.
And you know, the last couple budget years of your department were kind of hand-to-hand combat here. So I'm really looking to kind of like slow that down. And so I think it's great that you're going to take a look at what's there and make decisions based on your experience, which I heard is vast, on what you want to do. So I'd be hoping that you can educate us and hopefully we can get your department under control and it goes back to the way it was. But anyway, in that regard, you've had and have you ever worked with Paycom?
I have not. I've worked with a number of different
Yeah.
systems before. I've been through a tremendously large implementation in the past. So I know the trials and tribulations and the heart and soul that goes into an implementation. Starting to try and understand it as best I can. I think we're in a very good spot.
So you haven't had a chance to get into it, whether you think it's whether you think it's a great program or not program, or
So-
what you've seen before.
There's
other
no
places.
perfect,
Okay.
but I think that we're in a very good spot. I think our initial implementation is complete and we're looking at refining things. What's really coming up very quickly is open enrollment. So I want to get that squared away, ready to go. I'll be able to really assess it going forward and make sure we don't have any redundancies in any of our systems. And
When you say open enrollment, you're talking for the next municipal year for
Yes.
July 1st.
Right.
And then what do you have, a couple of weeks period of time where people get you all and stuff or whatever?
so we'll likely start in May, open enrollment. There's a lot of work to do before that. And it'll be here before we know it.
Okay.
So.
So I was gonna say, that's why I said if you worked with Paycom before, because from what I understand, we're only the second community in the state of Connecticut that's ever used it in a municipality, and now one of them just dropped out. So now we're the sole survivor on that. So I want to ask you a question, and I've asked your predecessor, and I never got a great answer on this. Your communication line, I noticed, hasn't changed. And every person in your department has a cell phone, a smartphone. Do you see the need for that? Because your predecessor couldn't really explain that to me year in and year out. Why that was necessary, other than she wants to stay in full communication with them at all points in time. And I used to say, well, I'm sure every department head wants to be in communication with their people at all points in time, but that would be a very expensive proposition with the town of Fairfield. Do you see that as a need going forward? Because you just seem to, there's like a rollover of the number. And she used to roll over the number and forget that. She said she was gonna cut it, whatever, so.
And maybe next year it won't be
Okay.
just roll over, right?
Yeah.
A couple of things. First of all, I don't want to be bothering my staff
Sure.
24/7.
Yeah.
That's not my
Yeah.
style. However, since in the short amount of time that I've been here, we've had, I think, a couple of blizzards. And I would depend on my staff if it's we're coming up to a payroll week to be able to communicate if people are not able to make their way into the office, and how are we going to make sure payroll is run and maybe we have some things to work out. So that to me was very valuable.
Yeah, but that's always been done here in this town. I mean, I know there's been many hurricanes, Storm Sandy, and Miss Bossy when she was in her position as controller, and Jude Fitzgerald when she was in Tom's finance department, and Miss Barry, I think, they would all like work that out. Like, we all see a forecast. We know something's coming. We know when a payroll's coming. We know we got to get something done. And it would all be taken care of. Like, that was never a problem. It worked smoothly through thick and thin and through some of the worst disasters, including Storm Sandy and the negative impacts that had on our town. And that was never a problem.
So maybe time will tell.
And people did it without a smartphone.
Right. So
You know?
well,
Like, so,
to your point, maybe time will tell.
okay. Is there any other savings you think that you may see in your department as you're moving into it based on your experience at other locations?
I don't
With
want
other
to,
municipalities?
sure. I don't want to commit to anything.
Yeah, I don't want to ask you for
at
your
this
commitment, so,
point,
okay, okay.
So thank you.
All right, okay. The role of the person that's left, is there a possibility that you might not need that person, that role? I know you said you might look for it to replace that
Oh,
position out from a human resources the associate into something else.
So as I sit here today,
Mhm.
I feel very strongly that FTE
Yeah.
will be needed
Mhm.
to make sure that we have no gaps. And that's, unless something drastically changes, that's my position right now.
Without, and I'm not asking whether you did it, I don't know, Tom, you did it. If all this stuff that's moving to risk management, all these six or seven different budget line items that are moving out of here, if you took those out and they weren't there for, like, what would the percent increase be in that department? Or would it be a decrease, actually? Probably even be a decrease, right?
I added it up. It's 858. 858 going down to 828, so it's going down 30.
Going down 30, and that's because of that
Roughly
position.
what she has in the payroll.
Yeah, we actually gave you a sheet that showed those changes on them.
Okay. I think that's all I have for you right now, but look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you very
Anybody have any
much.
other questions? Right.
Thank you so much. It was a
Thank you.
pleasure meeting you all.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move on to, does anyone want to take a 5-minute break? Because we're gonna go to executive session for a while and, so let's take 5 and then we'll get going on the rest of this. Okay?
John, is the rest in executive session?
A good chunk of it is, yeah. You're up next.
Are we gonna be in this room?
Yes, we're gonna be able to get people out and some people can stay and
It's,
And it's all handled up in your department now.
no, it's payroll. I think the title is,
Financial something.
financial something. Not a clerk.
Finance.
No, she's in payroll that's processed in finance.
Okay, so if I go to your page with all your employees listed on it, on page 86. I'm not seeing anything. There's a finance assistant, is that it?
Yes.
Yes,
Someone's in that role right now?
yeah, that's Kiva.
Oh, that's Kiva.
Yes,
I thought she was, maybe a role change. I thought she was accounts payable.
no, that's Bonnie.
Bonnie. And we used to have 2 accounts payable people? So many invoices coming in and all that stuff?
Not in my tenure.
Okay. Okay. All right, that's the only question I had follow up on. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna move to item number 2, insurance claims, and we're gonna have to go to executive session, but before we go into executive session, I need to make an amendment to who's gonna be in executive sessions, because there's certain people who should be in the sessions who aren't listed, so I'm gonna make a motion, hope someone seconds it, for item executive session insurance claims. To add Joel Chamberlain of Aon, Steve Senzo of Milliman, and then Tony DeFelice of the town of Fairfield as part of the executive session. For the workers' comp, I'd like to add Tony DeFelice, town of Fairfield. And for the heart and hypertension executive session, I'd like to add Tony DeFelice. So that's my amendment. Seconded by Mr. Myers, all in favor? Now I'll make a motion to go into executive session to hear claims and insurance claims, workers' compensation, hypertension. Can I have a motion? Mr. Meyer, seconded by Mr. Penway, all in favor? Okay, so we're all in executive session.
Recording.
You got a list of people who should be in this, and Ben, you were mentioned.
Recording in progress.
John, I'm gonna make a motion that we add also the executive session, Ben Bovero, if I'm saying.
Bovero.
Yeah, Bovero,
Thank you.
as well, to the executive session.
On all 3 matters.
On all 3 matters.
Second? Ms. Ruggiero, thank you. All in favor? Right. And now I'm going to make another motion to go into executive session. Seconded by Mr. Walsh, all in favor?
Aye.
Now we're in executive session. Okay, we're back. I'll take a motion to come out of executive session. Mr. Zerio, seconded by Mr. Myers, all in favor? Aye. All right, so the next item is unemployment compensation. However, just anyone in the public who's watching this, we're gonna be going back into executive session probably in about 10-15 minutes. Is there anybody in the public who wants to make a comment on what we've covered so far? We're not
No
gonna,
public
we're not gonna answer questions. I don't see anybody. Okay, I don't see anyone, so let's move on. All right, unemployment compensation, that's pages 109, 110 in the budget book. It's a flat budget. We know we have to spend much time on it, but let's take a look. We covered a Board of Ed on this too, right?
Yes.
Any questions on this?
Hearing none.
If we have any. All right, I don't see anybody's hand, knife in the air, so let's move on. All right, 1270 legal. That's page 60, 61, liability discussion, town attorney. Phil, come on up and take us through your project request and then we'll move on.
Sure, so the request is down a bit from last year. Charter revision is now completed, as the board is aware. We're also projecting less activity from the UI matter. The current status, as the board is probably aware, is that the deciding council denied the application that was docket 516R by UI. So UI has to go back to the drawing board at this point. So we're definitely expecting activity, but it's going to be less than it was the previous year. We also broke out a lobbyist for UI because that's been a fixture of the budget and it's not, it's part of the legal budget, but it's not up for lawyers doing legal services. So broke that out. The rest of it's pretty similar. Litigation is up because we have a lot of administrative appeals. The moratorium that Fairfield was granted obviously triggered development applications. Some of those resulted in administrative appeals, so we have a higher volume of administrative appeals that the town's handling. At this point. So, and tax appeals, it's still a moving target. We don't know. We won't know how many end up in court until probably it's going to be July. We won't know until July how many we have for the town to litigate.
So you're okay though with 150,000 for?
I mean, the first year of, they probably won't be too active. I mean, if we get inundated, that is going to be low.
Okay.
But they shouldn't be too active in the first year because there's a new statutory scheme that requires plaintiffs to provide initial disclosures and file appraisals with the court. It puts more of a burden on the plaintiff as opposed to the town. And typically at the beginning of a tax appeal, we just, issue discovery and we'll answer the complaint, but they shouldn't be too time intensive in that first year individually. In the aggregate, could be a lot if we get inundated. So that's, I don't know if there are questions.
So
Go ahead, Mr.
it's
Washington.
almost 1,000 appeals, right?
To the Board of Assessment
The
Appeals.
Board of Assessment.
Actually, I think it's more than that, but
Okay.
yeah, but
Like 900 something residential, right?
those got hearings, yeah.
Yeah.
There's also the commercials and
And the
industrials.
commercials, yeah. What have you seen in the past? What percentage? I mean, because I'm hearing like could be 400 court cases.
I'd be surprised if it's that many.
Okay.
So the past is kind of hard to use as a measuring stick because in 2021, a new statute came into effect that requires plaintiffs who have property valued at more than $1 million or assessed at more than $1 million, they have to get an appraisal.
Yeah.
And file with the court. So that puts a burden on the taxpayer earlier in the case. Before you had taxpayers filing appeals without appraisals.
Yeah.
So, I really can't tell how many of these end up in court.
The residential, it's not going to cost them a lot to get that appraisal, right?
No, but like they may get it and it may
$400.
not, they also may not support their case at that point.
Yeah.
They don't file the
It
appeal.
it was easier to file a tax appeal when you didn't have to initially shell out the money for an appraiser. So that's the
It
difference.
puts a burden on the plaintiff.
For any property over $1 million. We all have a lot of properties over $1 million.
I mean, the
Yeah.
vast majority of that 900 and something has to be over $1 million.
It's interesting. I'm sorry, Jim.
But there's a lot of appeals for the lower price houses. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
it actually affected them disproportionately. If you looked at when I would talk to Ross about it, he agreed that it disproportionately affected lower priced houses. Because they were underpriced. They were undervalued, or
Well,
at
the
least that's what the
market-
town's claim is.
I think the
So-
market was stronger for those properties. There's
Yeah.
more demand, so the sales support higher values.
Yeah.
So my point is that if you go out and hire a real estate appraiser,
Yeah.
the appraiser has to rely on comparable sales to justify a
Sure.
reduction. Reduction, they may not be able to do that, or they may not justify a reduction that's large enough to justify the expense of an appeal.
Mhm.
So you may not see as many appeals for residential properties. It really just depends on each specific property.
What percentage did you see the last time there were people representing themselves? In pro se.
So we didn't handle most of the tax appeal defense last time. Actually, we might handle any, but we did handle in the 2010 cycle, we handled the tax appeal defense for the town. And it was a small number that represented themselves.
Okay.
Usually they hire a lawyer.
And that's gonna cut down on the.
Right, because the lawyer, so a lot of these cases are taken on a contingency.
Yeah.
So it's gotta be interesting enough for the lawyer to want to.
Yeah,
take it on
without
a
a doubt.
contingency.
Yeah.
And it's hourly, right? I mean.
Yeah.
There's expense exposure to the plaintiff.
Yeah.
So.
Mr. Myers, you have a question?
Yeah, back to the UI. Is Bridgeport participating in the fight against the UI, or is it really just the Fairfield that's kind of fighting that? Or is
No,
it
they're
sharing in these expenses? I mean,
They have their own counsel. We are largely aligned, but they need to have separate counsel. So they have.
We have a good lawyer, I can tell you that.
We sure do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they've hired Pullman and Conley.
You?
They have,
No, it's not me, but
Pullman and Conley represents them. They have competent counsel that knows the citing counsel process.
okay.
And we're, we're aligned with them and we work with them, but they need to have separate counsel.
Just basically Fairfield and Bridgeport. Is there any other town that would?
This segment of the project only affects Fairfield and Bridgeport.
Okay.
The lobbyist, are we splitting that cost with Bridgeport?
No, this is our lobbyist.
And we use that lobbyist for other things besides UI.
So the $45,000 that's in your budget for a lobbyist is not just for UI, it's for other things.
We use them for Pura, we use them for just other state litigation, for guidance, for advocacy. Right now, Pura for the last few months has been a focus for them.
Aquarian stuff.
Well, that's what I mean, Pura Aquarian.
I mean, this
And if
could,
something else comes up, just education funding right now.
this 45 grand could be really put anywhere, right?
It could be put anywhere. It just during the first year when the UI fight was happening, we were deciding where it would come out of and it just was like, well, put it in legal. So it does not have to be in my budget.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think in the
it.
future it should. We should probably break it out into someplace else for that. But tax appeals, are you gonna have to get your own appraisal?
We eventually have to get our own appraisals if the cases are slated for trial.
Are you handling all these tax appeals or your firm?
Most likely, I mean, we'll have some conflicts that we won't be able to handle.
And then where will that funding for the appraisals come out of?
That usually comes out of a separate line. It does not come out of the legal.
Well, I agree. So there's like another line, it doesn't seem to have a lot of money in it. So, and there's really no increase in it. So I'm questioning when do you need to get those appeals? Are they gonna have to be during this 27 budget?
Okay, most likely be then. It'd be unusual to have to town to get an appraisal that fast. It most likely be the next fiscal year.
Next fiscal
It could even be after that.
That would probably be in the miscellaneous contingencies.
Yes,
right?
yes.
I think
Year-
that's
that-
It
I would
actually
imagine
mentions
next year that's
appraisal.
gonna go up.
So next year you'll increase that line.
That's on 62 and 63.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll know the volume.
Really miscellaneous, it's not really.
Yeah, for stuff like that. All right, anything else on this? All right, so. So next is internal service fund insurance claims. We're gonna have to go into executive session. The way the agenda was printed is a little confusing, but we have under this a discussion of a bunch of claims and litigation. And then in contingency, we have these same matters again, but I think for the contingency, when we go into executive session, we're gonna be talking more about
Financial reserve.
financial reserves. Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion to go into executive session. Discuss internal service fund insurance claims and then contingency. I think I've added all the parties who need to be part of this, so I'll make the motion. Second.
I don't think you need me for the
No,
rest of it,
I don't know
right?
what
Are you on here? No, you're not. You don't, you need, you don't.
what
Contingency?
we need it for contingencies.
You need it for contingency.
We
that's
do
right.
contingency first?
Sure, we can do contingency
There's
first.
a sh-
Someone vote on my motion first. Let's all vote on it. Go to executive session. Aye. Unanimous, it looks like, even though some guys didn't raise their hands. Okay. All right, so
We don't have Ben listed.
we're in executive session. I'll entertain a motion to come out of executive session. Mr. Zero, second by Mr. Myers. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Zero, seconded by Mr. Walsh, all in favor? Okay, thank you, everyone.
1 minute.